I don't know how to introduce myself. I have become many things over the years. So professionally, I serve as the Programs Director for Trust Africa. We are a Pan-African organization that is headquartered in Dakar, Senegal. It's an organization that was founded on the big idea that we must strengthen African agency in solving Africa's most pressing challenges. And we work all across the continent on democracy and governance. We work on equitable development, and we work on advancing African philanthropy. In Zimbabwe, I serve as the convener for Citizens Manifesto. It's a convergence platform of more than 20 civic initiatives, civil society organizations, social movements, progressive activists who are all working together in solidarity to advance the idea of a better Zimbabwe for all. So I wear that hat as well. I'm also a farmer. I spend a lot of time, growing crops, raising animals, and passing on the legacy of farming to my 3 sons. I'm also in the hospitality industry. So it's many hats. It's many hats, yes. I think we have a crisis in the very idea of Zimbabwe as a nation that represents a promise for a better tomorrow for everyone, regardless of your ethnicity, your geographical location, your gender. If you look at our current setup, we have a major crisis where it appears as if a small minority elite has captured the state for their own individual benefit. It appears as if we have lost the sense of what does it mean to have inclusivity. If you look at Zimbabwe today, we are one of the most divided nations on the continent. We are one of the most stagnant when it comes to developmental progress. Many countries across the continent, Zambia, today they have all moved so much forward in terms of their own development process. For us, it appears as if we are caught up in a time warp of sorts where the sense is that there must be some perfect solution to our political challenges, our political questions, then we will move forward. The problem is that we are over-politicized as a nation. If you look at our media, if you look at our everyday conversations, it's all politics. So we spend all our time, all our energy focused on leaders and who is better than the other, and not focused on us as citizens and what we can do. So we have this challenge where we have reduced citizenship to showing up once every 5 years to vote someone, to vote a leader into an office, and we completely surrender our agency and we go back to just being spectators and commentators. Whereas if you look at societies that move forward, they have the notion of what's called participation, participatory democracy. So participatory democracy means that as a citizen, you show up every day, you show up in everything that matters, and it's everyone that's showing up in everything that matters in our public life as a country. By the time we get to the 5 years, where we are now saying we are choosing leaders, you can really have an opportunity to choose leaders on the basis of their record, not on the basis of the promises that they are, going to make. Anyone can make a promise. It's the easiest thing to do. If you look at, just look at Zimbabweans on, on the online platforms, everyone is following the politics of this political option versus this. I mean, it's this leader versus this leader. We are overly politicized to the extent that we have completely ignored all the other things that represents opportunities for us to move forward as a country. My sense in terms of where we are as a country is that we are at a moment where we should be having a generational transition. You had an older generation that represented our quest for independence, our fight against colonialism, and that generation did what they needed to do during their time. But you are at a moment where, if you look at it as a wave, that wave has dissipated. Our history is asking for the emergence of the next wave that represents the next big agenda for us as a country called Zimbabwe. And that can only be championed by young people. So part of the challenge that we have had is that the generation that fought the struggles of yesterday has extended their tenure into an era where their mandate is expired, where they do not even have the ability to sense the needs, the most pressing needs of the moment. So if we are looking at one of the biggest things that needs to happen in this country is creating completely open, completely unhindered, completely free space for young people to be able to articulate their aspirations, to be able to unleash their creativity in finding solutions to the challenges that we are confronted with today. So without that generational transition, the country gets into what you can call a historical constipation, where we are stuck. It's historical stagnation. We can't move. I think our problem is with our legislature. Our legislature is a victim to the political polarization. Our legislators do not have agency. They do not have drive. They do not have the ability to represent their constituencies. The most significant thing that most of our legislators can point to after serving even for 10 years in parliament, 20 years in parliament, is simply that 4x4 that they get from parliament and fewer coupons and all of these other things. We should be knowing today that someone is going into parliament because their community is affected by climate change or environmental degradation. The next thing is, if you have a legislator who is coming, let's say, from a labor background, would expect that they would push a labor relations bill that defends and protects the rights and the interest of workers. We need to have a legislative champion on healthcare who is going to push forward a bill that says everyone has a right to emergency care when they show up at a public hospital or at an emergency room that is run by a private facility. And again, that becomes a law. Same as education, we need to have that driven from the point of view of our legislature. So the problem that we have had is that our legislature is an arena for scoring political points. It's not an arena for serious legislative work that must then translate into improved livelihoods, improved healthcare, improved education, improved environmental protection, improved protection for labor rights, improved child rights protection. If you look at advanced democracies, earlier on, citing the example of the American Congress, they've got a congressional research services that exist to carry out thorough, in-depth research and serve members of the legislature, regardless of whether they are from the ruling party or the opposing party, but they will get the most hardcore facts about the implications of any particular legislative proposal. But it's part of the architecture that you've invested in institutions that can make the democratic process real. Our legislators don't even have an office. They've got pigeonholes. If you go to parliament, they've got pigeonholes that if you go in, they are overflowing with mail that's, you know, like junk mail. No one has a specific office where you can meet them, where you can go and raise the issues as a constituents. So the reality is that our democratic framework and architecture is in its most infancy. We need to think about how that legislative framework we have can actually be resourced and designed in a manner that will give it a chance to deliver. Well, the first thing I'll say is the buck stops with you. If you are in the driving seat, you are behind the steering wheel, the buck stops with you. The divisions, the polarizations, the collapse on the economy, the dysfunctionality of our politics, you must take greater responsibility for that. Zimbabwe needs an inclusive national conversation that explores some of the questions that we are exploring here today. A lot of Zimbabweans have something to give to that conversation. They just need the space to be created. All across the full spectrum of our society, we are seeing that breakdown in trust. So we need an inclusive national conversation that can repivot us towards forward progress once again as a country.